Hi, I'm Karen Rice and welcome to my watercolour YouTube channel. I'm going to be painting a lovely misty winter trees watercolour painting. It's a step-by-step tutorial. I'm going to be building tones, working light to dark using a limited palette. And for all the materials that I'll be using, please see the description below with links if you'd like to purchase any of them and for colour alternatives. This is the beautiful photograph that I'll be using for this tutorial, and a link for that can be found in the description below. I've sketched out my painting and I've used an HB pencil. If you're interested in outline sketches, they are available on my Patreon membership. Just click the link in the top right hand corner and it'll give you more details, but you'll get longer tutorials with lots more voiceovers and you can cancel at any time. So shall we get started? Also use some masking fluid here and there because this is a little bit of a snowy, misty sort of scene as well. I've got my limited palette. I've mixed up a little bit of burnt umber and Prussian blue. I'm using a large, flat, soft brush, painting wet on dry, and I'm sort of just I'm missing out the sort of central area there, which looks almost like a stream actually, but it's some snow there, and I'm just sort of wetting over the trees. The only tree that I'm not wetting is the birch tree, which I've moved a little bit into the painting, which is on the left hand side, and I'm just giving a glaze of this beautiful colour in the sort of background over everything. And this is my first tonal colour. Remember, I'm working light to dark. My lightest light is the birch tree and the snowy sort of area in the foreground. You can see there I'm using my size 10 round black velvet brush and I'm mixing up Paynes grey and yellow and just painting wet into wet the sort of grassy areas. I've added a little bit more Paynes grey, it's quite a little bit creamier, and I've just put a bit of dark in the sort of foreground area of the grasses, working damp into damp, and it's just sort of building up, working light to dark with these sort of, you know, the darker colours obviously is the Paynes grey with a tiny touch of yellow. I don't want the painting to look too bright, so I'm really sort of being careful how much yellow I'm going to be using. The sort of what really attracted to me about this photograph was those distant trees, those misty distant trees, and I've used burnt umber and Prussian blue, very watered down, working damp into damp. I'm just using the tip of my brush here and painting some darks, creamy colour, damp into damp. I'm using a dry brush effect here to give that texture on the snow, and I'm using my size 10 brush with a little bit of burnt umber and Paynes grey mixed together. I've mixed up some Prussian blue and the burnt umber again, quite pale, and I'm painting, either you could paint damp into damp, or if your paper has dried you can paint wet on dry, but I'm just painting in the trees now, quite pale because I don't want them to come forward because they're in the distance and in the mist. It's quite effective having those trees, the foliage of those trees in the background, working damp into damp. I'm actually mixed up a little bit of the Paynes grey and yellow, lots of Paynes grey, and I'm painting wet on dry now, just the foreground grasses, just building up the detail, working light to dark. I'm just painting in now the sort of trees that's sort of just coming forward a little bit, leaving some of the others quite sort of misty. I'm still using the burnt umber and the Prussian blue watered down, but this time the tonal value is a little bit stronger to create depth in your painting, and I'm using my size 6 brush, working wet on dry. This is a fun technique. I'm actually applying the foliage by sort of rolling the brush in my fingertips so you get this nice textural effect. It's fun to do, but do give it a little bit of practice before you put it on your painting, because it can be a little bit tricky. If you didn't want to do the rolling the brush, you could actually use your sponge. It can be just as effective. My painting is dry now, and I'm just building up some tonal value in the distance here using quite pale Prussian blue and burnt umber mixed together. And I'm working sort of just where the silver birch tree is, using my size 6 brush, just painting some grasses wet on dry, mixing a little bit of the yellow with the Paynes grey and even a touch of the burnt umber here and there. You saw there in the foreground, I really painted some lovely dark tonal values, and I'm using now some Paynes grey and burnt umber and just putting the markings in on the silver birch tree using my size 4 brush, and then using just a wet brush and diluting that colour a little bit to put some shadows on the left hand side. I thought to make this painting look a little bit Christmassy or a little bit wintry, I'm spattering it now with some white gouache, but you could use white watercolour as well. I'm using my size 6 brush. I've watered down the gouache a little bit and just tapping there with my sort of index finger there with a little bit of pressure just to get the paint off the brush. Just make sure you don't do this anywhere where you don't want any white spots on there. So you might want to mask out your table or wherever you're working, but it is great fun to do and so effective. My framing tape just to have a good look at my painting, and I felt there wasn't enough in the sort of middle distance, so I'm just adding not so much more trees but just making these trees come forward a little bit by just building the tonal value and putting some branches in here and there. So I think I'll leave my painting there for now. I really hope you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. If you'd like to watch the longer version with lots more talk about colour mixing and techniques and of course the sketching template, why not think about joining the Patreon membership? You can cancel anytime and a link for the Patreon membership is in the description below. If you'd like to get notifications for any future videos that I publish on YouTube, why not subscribe to my YouTube channel and you'll get updates of my latest videos. If you have any questions about this tutorial, please put them in the comments section below. I would love to hear from you. Thank you again for watching. Happy painting. Bye for now.